Hi, I'm Sheenah Rogers-Pfeiffer, and welcome to the Acast, a place where marketing truths prevail. Through the eyes of some of the most talented industry experts, we will help you navigate through everything you thought you knew or wish you had known about the ever-evolving and complex world of marketing communications. Thanks, and enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Acast. I'm your host, Sheenah Rogers-Pfeiffer, and today we have my friend and someone who I really admire for the work that he's doing in his industry, Allan Klassen. Thanks for being here, Allan.
Great to be here, Sheenah. Thank you.
Allan is the Chief Experience Officer, got that? Chief Experience Officer at Brookfield Residential. And for those of you that have been living under a rock and don't know who Brookfield is the leading North American developer and home builder, active in, would you say 12?
Well,
12 regions in
12
US and
regions,
Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, just a small position you have at that company.
Well, it's actually just acquired two major new mixed-use opportunities and buying a bunch of shopping centers around North America. So it's going to be much more even substantial than it is today in terms of just breadth and.
That's great.
So a very cool company to work for.
That's great.
Be a part of.
Yeah, and we met when you were at Albee Homes, and you were the CEO of Albee.
Yeah, managing partner and CEO, and so.
And you've been in the housing industry for almost 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
Bit of a journey. So it's. I knew it was time to get out and do something different, and this is the right opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today about customer experience, because it's something that's very near and dear to my heart as someone that is running an agency and is an advocate for trying to lead marketing through the customer's point of view.
Right.
And I'm really interested in not only your journey as it relates to how you how you went from CEO to Chief Experience Officer, but then I want to talk a little bit more about what customer experience means to you and that sort of thing. So I guess for our viewers, before we get to it, I want to clarify the difference between brand and customer experience, right? Because they're kind of one and the same a lot now, right?
Great article that I just pulled up that said your brand is your customer experience.
I was just going to say that. So customer experience is now defining your brand.
You got it.
Versus, I think, the way that it was viewed in the past, where brand really was the talk, customer experience was the walk. They were very separate.
Right. And really, I think customer experience wasn't even that much of a dialogue. It was about customer service or customer satisfaction. And I think now we've evolved so much because of technology and because of knowledge that the journey that our customers are on we know this for a fact, is outweighing actually the impact of product or price or service. It's how do we feel as we go through whatever transaction or whatever purchase we're making.
Right.
So it's becoming very prevalent in terms of how critical it is to the strategy you employ.
Right. And you can't really separate one from the other. So you can't work on a brand where in the past a brand was an impression. It was just how many times you could make that impression through media.
Yeah.
And a customer experience was something that was really it was more managed, right? From more of the back end, right? As sort of an afterthought.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the transparency that we have today, and we know that authenticity is the number one driver for consumers, is they want to be with somebody who they can trust and they can really be comfortable with and know that they're dealing with somebody who is forthright. So authenticity is really about that whole experience, and it's really becoming, again, reflective of who you are. I mean, you can't hide from anything anymore, and whether it's reviews or whether it's third-party surveys or whether it's word of mouth, whether it's Facebook, whatever it might look like, you are being defined by the experience you provide for your customers, and therefore, I believe that's why it's becoming what your brand represents, what your brand promise is.
Yeah, exactly. And so how certain do you have to be about your brand purpose, right? So sort of the larger, like, what are we here to do, right? How clear do you think you have to be on your brand purpose before you can start to implement, a formal or proper customer experience program?
Well, I think it can certainly help, and I do believe that it can evolve as well. I think that it's very critical that you have clarity of who you are and and what role you play in whatever industry you're in, and how you're going to compete. But I know firsthand, and I've only been in this current role for about 5 months, that the further we dig in, some of those goalposts that we would have set years ago are going to have to change. And so
sure.
it's a transitional journey in terms of understanding who your customer is and what their expectations are, and for a company like ours, this is a major transition.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, right? Like, going in and wearing this hat
Right.
at Brookfield is, I mean, what are some of the obstacles you've encountered?
Well, and as amazing of a company that Brookfield is, and Brookfield Asset Management, who is the parent company, holds about $385 billion worth of assets in all sorts of different industries around the world, and is incredibly well revered. And Brookfield Residential, or Brookfield Property Management Company, Property Development Company, sorry, are very much asset-based, transactional focused. And one of my number one priorities is to transition the culture of Brookfield from that transactional base to a relationship based, in order for us to deliver a better customer experience.
So you believe it starts from the inside?
Well, that's why the first real heavy lifting we're doing right now is doing an overall behavioral assessment of all employees. How do leaders view themselves in terms of how they show up as it relates to the behaviors that are required to deliver a great customer experience? How does the organizational actually show up, and how do the employees, the team members, view those leaders? So we've created a diagnostic tool which is going to really show us the white space, the gaps, the opportunities for us to be able to continue to improve and evolve. And it's very much around behavior. It's about it's mindset. And in a great organization like Brookfield, who is they're a financial company. They're very asset rich and very driven that way. Making different decisions that are going to have an impact, potentially have an impact on their immediate return, is a big shift for them.
Right.
But one that they're willing to really engage in and understand.
Well, that's what I think what could be very fascinating for a lot of people watching this, because a lot of people watching this are in perhaps maybe like a VP or a director role within their companies, could be also in the C-suite.
Yeah.
So, I think especially what I hear a lot from people is they believe in the premise of customer experience, but they don't really know how to take the first step. So
Right.
Do you believe that it has to be a C-suite decision, or do you believe that there's things that can happen?
No. I believe 100% it is. It has got to be at the very top of the organization, and there has to be complete buy-in. There has to be alignment. We created an aspiration, and then we've worked over the last 12 months to get alignment with all of our regions, with all of our executives. But if we didn't have the support of our CEO, our COOs, and our leading executive, we wouldn't be making this kind of a transformation. And so I fully believe this cannot be one department or a marketing initiative or a customer facing group. It's got to be throughout the entire organization to really create the DNA that you need if you want to be a leader. If you want to be, just show up and be middle of the pack, which is where Brookfield is right now. Keep on doing the same thing the same way.
Yeah.
But if you want to transform, it really takes everybody on the same boat.
I read a statistic recently out of the Harvard Business Review that said that 86% of business leaders agree that customer experience is vital for success.
Exactly.
Yet, and I see this a lot, and I'm curious in your opinion on this, yet I would say 86% aren't actually leading their business this way and actually aren't transforming. And so why do you think that is? Like, what's the barrier?
Well, the second part of that comment, I believe, is that only 36% of those companies are doing it well.
Right.
So I believe that there's not a real honest link between feedback from the customer, really good honest dialogue that you're really truly understanding the journey, that you're really looking at the journey from the customer's eyes.
Do you think it's a fear-based thing? Like, do you think that a lot of, like, at that upper level, like from your experience or from what you understand within this era of customer experience, that it's fear that's sort of leading people to not throw themselves completely into it?
Yeah,
or,
I think a fear and unknown,
yeah,
and maybe reluctance to get vulnerable, because I believe that you know, in order to connect with your customers, you've got to be competent. You have to have vulnerability.
you gotta be stripped down in a lot of ways.
Exactly,
Yeah,
you
show
know,
your true colors.
and that's difficult, particularly for companies that have been successful. So I really believe that there is a transition that has to happen and a awakening, and we created an awakening when we got this whole thing going, when we showed the facts to our C-suite about if we didn't change, we were going to face a real uphill battle in terms of creating any kind of a competitive advantage.
So you guys actually saw that through business planning, like you were able to forecast that in a lot of ways.
Well, not so much through business planning, but through third-party feedback.
Right.
So a lot of what we based our direction on is through third-party feedback, where we've been able to, and benchmarking against other industries. You know, I mean, in our world in North America, you know, though we're a large developer, we're not the largest builder. But there are other competitors out there that are significantly larger that are investing incredibly heavily on the whole journey of the customer. And I think that's the other part that has really become prevalent to me is that a lot of businesses, and home builders and developers are the same, look at these touch points or look at these journeys from their processes and all that kind of good stuff. What they forget to do is link the customer's feelings during, what are they feeling during that initial, you know,
That touch point.
That touch point, right? What are they feeling throughout the whole journey,
Right.
and what is it impacting? What decisions are they making because of that? You know, and I think that's one of the big ahas is if you really truly want to be excellent at this, you got to take a walk in the customer's shoes. You got to talk their language.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that there's a lot of organizations that are there.
Yeah, they still want people to be, they still want to be pushing things at people and are expecting people to be able to actually accept what they're pushing at them, right?
sure.
When in fact, the first thing people want to do when they're being pushed anything is shy away, right?
Exactly.
And run in the other direction,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of feels very common sense. That's why it's so surprising that you don't see more of, you don't see more customer experience work translating in a lot of these organizations.
Well, it takes a lot of heavy lifting. We know that the majority of large builders and developers are seeing this as a priority. You already rattled off a stat. That stat has changed again significantly from 2010, where it was less than 30%. You know, of businesses that were engaged in customer experience. So. I don't think it's a fad. I think consumers are becoming more knowledgeable. They're showing up knowing more, and the whole idea about understanding how they're feeling is critical.
So let's take me back a bit. Let's rewind a bit.
Yep.
So you were running LB Homes, very successful home builder group. You've always seemed to be a very relationship, customer-focused guy.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think, like, you just fundamentally have always believed in?
For sure.
Or is it something that you had to sort of train yourself as, a CEO or someone in the C-suite to learn?
I didn't get blessed like I've been blessed because of my good looks or my brains.
Come on.
So I
disagree.
I certainly have been able to, building relationships is the way that I believe the world goes round.
Yeah.
And we made a conscious decision at LB a number of years ago that our core value discipline, though we built great product, and one would argue some of the best product in the luxury space, that our primary value discipline was going to be being customer-centric and having that customer intimacy. And I also believe it's why Brookfield bought us.
I was just going to say that the value prop was there. That's why I wanted to take you back to go for you to be taken from this culture that you created that was so customer focused and that added so much value, and then brought into a more transaction oriented type business like Brookfield. Like
that was
that
a
must
strategy.
have been but that must have been a really hard shift for you.
Oh, for me personally, it was incredibly challenging. Particularly moving from a very entrepreneurial, very customer centric, very high end product to more of a volume scenario, and being put in that environment, I mean, I learned a ton, but it was very counterintuitive of how my brain worked. I stood out like a sore thumb.
Right.
And it's really what drove me to this situation, because I wasn't going to be able to stay in that role because of just who I was. And so as we evolved and we created this opportunity, it allowed me to be able to stay true to myself, be authentic, and really lead in the way that I truly believe.
Yeah.
So this is what you get.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's incredible. I remember when you first told me about the role, I saw you at a restaurant and you handed me your new business card and I was like, what the heck is going on? But I love it because I applaud Brookfield for it. And again, I think it speaks so truly to who you are and what you believe in, and really the principles that have led you.
Well, I think it's a lot of courage from Brookfield's perspective in terms of, hey, they've been pretty successful. They got a pretty good winning formula, but they're very they realize that again they needed to change some things. So
for sure,
we're having some fun, and it's not without its roadblocks. That's for sure.
Yeah. So when you're talking about this transformation that has to happen here, especially internally, a big part of making a customer experience program successful, to your point, is not about just the external piece, right?
Right.
It's the internal, but when you go inside a company like Brookfield that is so huge, right, and has so many different silos, whether it's departments, geography, then you get into when you get into geography, cultural differences. How are you looking at being able to implement this? And how do you think you get around some of those silos?
Well, I mean, this is why we originally when we thought about this diagnostic, we thought, well, we'll just do the management. And then I was thinking about it, and I go, no, we need to connect the dots. So I call it link paycheck to purpose.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter if you are somebody who is in finance or in people and culture or behind the scenes. We had to create a culture that was one with a caring heart. And you can't do that by just talking to the people that are customer facing. It's about, how do I take care of you? In my mind and my philosophy, there is only one customer. There's not an internal customer or an external customer. There's only an external customer, and that's the one that signs the check. But there are teammates, and we are all stakeholders in that journey. And one of the things that I'm trying to do now is paint that picture so that that person that's in finance that works long hours is supporting others that are really making a difference in the lives of our customers. And so one can't survive without the other. And it's, we're not there yet, but that's the journey we're on, and we're really trying to talk to the greater team, not in these silos and not from a geographic perspective. And, I know it's worked before in other organizations, and I truly believe that with consistency, it can work in this organization as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we worked on a project many moons ago for Starbucks where we had to go and audit basically behavior within all of the different retail stores across North America. And I never drank more Starbucks in my life. I don't think I could ever look at just a normal black coffee again the same. And we did the same for Manitoba Telecom, right? And so a lot of the rationale back then, this was before customer experience really became a huge explosive thing, right? You look at someone like a Starbucks, they were always so far ahead of their game, right? For them, it was about trying to connect the brand experience, right? But ultimately, it all comes back to bottom line. It all comes back to revenues. And there's a saying that not measuring your customer experience is like not counting your money. Right. And when you guys look at how you're going to actually, as a company, be able to measure this, and what you're sort of expected to see here from a metric standpoint, what are some of those things that you're?
Well, there's as I said earlier, every one of our customers has a third-party survey that goes 3 to 4 times to evaluate the overall process. This is not just an NPS; it is a 60 to 65 question survey. So we have those natural metrics that are tied right into the customer experience, and we've created a standard across North America of what we want to measure and what's important. And I could get into industry technology or terminology, but bottom line is we really want to get a good handle on a consistent look at it. But we're also going to measure this through pure financial metrics. We
Yeah.
truly believe that we can enhance our advocacy. It costs 5 times more to go out and find a new customer than it does to keep an existing one.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that, because a lot with customer experience is about churn, right? It's about
Yeah,
retention.
for sure.
Like it's more, and especially in today's day and age, which I'm going to kind of bring up a new theory that I want your opinion on. But in today's day and age, it's not about how many people you can actually speak to. It's about how you can create meaning.
How can you influence them?
And how can you influence people, right?
Yeah,
So it's looking
yeah.
at it in sort of smaller buckets.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
I mean, we have 3 outcomes. We want to create raving fans. We want to be the most trusted expert in the industry. And we want to create community. And I'm not talking communities. I'm talking about creating community where there's belonging and networking and a connection between people. And those are kind of the 3 more subjective outcomes of this. And then through that, we want to create customers for life. So our hope and dream is that we're at a point where a homeowner, whether it's in a Brookfield community with another builder or a Brookfield home in a Brookfield community, people want to and must have a Brookfield. That's the drive for us, right? So, but that's going to come through connecting people that are advocates with people that are maybe considering a new community or a new neighborhood and a new home. And it comes back to building those great relationships.
Yeah. I'm all about buzzwords because obviously I get faced with them all the time in the industry, right? And now we're in this experiential era, you could call it, right?
Yeah.
But what's funny about it, as I was really thinking, as you know, we've been having a lot of conversations recently. So as I've been thinking about what you're doing, what came very clear to me when you talk about this relationship piece is it's not just about experiences anymore, right? Experiences is one set, but we're almost in like an attention era because it's about being able to not only grab attention, but keep attention of the customer, right? And how do you keep that attention? And how do you keep that attention on you to stay loyal to you and create that advocacy? And so it's almost like we're experiencing this shift. And I find it ironic, and I've always found it ironic in the real estate industry, how you have this asset or this product that is the most important product that you'll ever probably make a decision on in your life, right? One of them, right?
Oh, for
your
sure.
home is
For
number
sure.
one. Yet the industry itself has done such a, and I'm making a very generalized
Terrible
statement
job.
here. Thank you. We can be blunt here. They've done a very terrible job of being able to connect that emotional piece or that attention grabbing piece to what should be fairly easy to grab someone's attention on. This isn't a chocolate bar, right? It's something
this is shelter, this is
profound.
safety, this is building memories, this is creating unbelievable experiences for the people that you love the most. There's a very emotional component to this, and I think we've done. I think as an industry, we've done a terrible job of linking that with the people that are actually, building and developing our homes, and as well with our homeowners. And we've also done a terrible job, and this is where I think this whole customer for life scenario comes in. We move a person into a home, flip them their keys. We've lived with them for the last 8-10 months, and all of a sudden, boom, you're under a warranty watch. And I say, crap on that.
I agree.
That's when the relationship should really pick up. And so, without giving away a whole bunch of trade secrets, that's an area of focus for us. Is how do we keep that homeowner part of the family? How do we keep them engaged? How do we create that continue to create great experiences, wow moments, blow them away, so that when they're at a dinner party or when the next time is they have to make a lifestyle change or whatever it might be, they can only think of one group that they want to work with, Brookfield. And it doesn't take a lot. It's not a multi-million-dollar campaign. It's a phone call. Rather than waiting for the phone to ring, picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, how you doing? How's everything going? Have you checked your downspouts or showing up out of nowhere?" Those things cost nothing. They blow your homeowners away, and they become loyal advocates for you.
Well, that's that was what I was going to ask you next. Is where do you start? Like if you're not Brookfield and you can't invest. I don't know what you're investing, but I'm sure it's nothing that's not significant.
Right.
If you can't make a significant investment in it today, where do you start? Is it grassroots level, like fundamental, just people-oriented
Well,
principles?
number one, look in the mirror and how are
Yeah.
you behaving?
Yeah.
You know, how are you behaving with your team? Are you a servant leader or are you a dictator?
I love that you brought up the servant leader. I brought my director team the servant leadership book.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
because I totally believe in that.
it's part of my personal philosophy.
Yeah.
But if you're behaving a certain way as the COO or whatever it might look like, and people are going to feed off that, and it's always a reflection of the leadership group. So, I mean, that costs you nothing,
Yeah.
except for maybe a little bit of humility.
Yeah.
You know,
Which a lot of leaders are not good at, and that actually goes back to, I think we're dissecting something here, where it goes back to why some of the C-suite can't make the change.
For
It's
sure.
because they can't. The humility part for them
No
is
doubt.
not something that they're used to. There's a lot of ego.
or they came up a certain way. They've been very successful. They're very technically sound.
Yeah.
And humility, particularly, humility and humbleness, very difficult for a lot of egos. And yet, in my mind, as a leader, I believe that vulnerability, humility, humbleness are three of the most powerful attributes
I agree.
that allow you to be able to connect with people and truly lead.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just actually going out for a walk and you turn behind you and nobody's there,
That's very true.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then I think it's really truly understanding who your customer is. You know, I think it's really important for the smallest of organizations to truly, trying to be all things for all people is very difficult,
Well, you can't.
and you can't, and you certainly can't.
Certainly
do it very
not
well.
today, like with the
No.
amount of competition that's out there,
Exactly.
and like everyone, like if you were going to be everything to everyone, you have to be. I mean, even Coca-Cola can't
No.
be everything to everyone.
No.
They've started to kind of go more in market niche, like be able to cater to certain cultures
Yeah.
and more than they ever did before.
For sure.
For that reason.
So understanding those personas of these people
Yeah.
and what makes them tick and what motivates them and what are they afraid of and all those kinds of good things. It's incredibly important.
It is.
Rather than, again, just trying to sell a widget,
Yeah.
which is the old way. The old way is gone. It's never coming back.
I know.
So a
We
lot
need
of...
to just skywrite that across. We just skywrite that. Like
For
the
sure.
old way is gone.
It's
like
gone.
everybody start to focus on
and
a
I
new
don't care
way.
if you're in a marketplace like Alberta, which is very difficult,
Yeah.
or if you're in a hot market like Southern California, or in Washington or Toronto or what. It doesn't matter. It is really about who is that person that's going to make the biggest decision of their life, and decide you
Yeah.
get them.
Yeah. It's even as simple, like some of the work that we've been doing with some clients is just on that customer journey, like just identify the customer journey, right?
Right.
Like start there, just by like start
Right.
to recognize the feelings, to your point, and emotions that are attributed to certain points,
Right.
and start uncovering opportunities there, which is a really good place to start in a lot of ways if you can't get into all of the data sourcing and stuff like that.
And the only thing I would add,
Yeah.
Sheenah, is not a process touch point map.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is where everybody's going.
Exactly.
A customer journey is their journey.
Yes.
What are they feeling? What are they going through?
Yeah.
What are they thinking? Through that process. But what's their journey like?
Yeah.
And get
And
a
not map it, to your point, on what you think it is. So our website, an ad, remove that from the table.
I
Absolutely.
did this presentation to a group of area sales managers, and I showed them a graph that shows the typical, in this case, the builder journey versus the customer's journey, and it's completely night and day in terms of where they're at in the sales funnel versus where they're at in the emotional journey that the homeowner goes
Yeah.
through. It's freaking wild.
Yeah.
You
I've
know.
always wanted to just like bang heads together in the real estate industry. When I set out
Yeah.
and started Anstis, I was
Right.
trying to bang heads together
Right.
on this, and it's amazing how slow the industry has been to catch up. It's probably the slowest, I would say, minus
Because
oil
of-
and gas.
Well,
It's probably up there,
yeah.
but it's one of the slowest
It is.
to actually adapt.
Well, and in this region, we've been very blessed.
Yeah.
We've been very lucky, and it's maybe kind of hid some of our sins. So nothing like a good recession. Might as well take advantage of it.
Right?
Right.
Wake people up a little bit.
You got
exactly.
it. You got it.
So personally, I want to know, because of your history and your 30 years in doing this, you're also pretty involved in the community and doing a lot with the
Gordie Howe Cares.
Gordie Howe Cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what makes you tick? Like what gets you out of bed every day? Like what's the passion for you?
Great question, you know, and without getting too deep, I went through a real personal crisis about a year and a half ago, in terms of my own self-identity. Had a bit of a, you know, meltdown, and in terms of not knowing who I was, had to seek out some help. I had some mild mental illness where I was really faced with anxiety and with depression, and it was really a time for me to search about what my purpose was. So, you know, for me, I mean, I love building relationships. I love helping people. My dream is that when people walk away from me, they're feeling better than they did when they first shook my hand or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so through that journey, I created a personal philosophy by looking at where my fears were, where my insecurities were, where my passions were, where I thought there was amazing people that I really truly respected, and I landed on live authentically, lead with a caring heart, serving others passionately. And when I'm in that space, whether it's in charity work or whether it's coaching kids in hockey or whether it's in the office or even with my own kids, most days, when I don't want to strangle.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other yeah, exactly. I try that brings me back to center.
Yeah.
And I've studied a lot around mindfulness and gotten more clarity than ever. But I just think for me that, you know, I guess I've always wanted to just make an impression. And for some time, that was the wrong thing to do. I was doing that out of insecurity. Right? And I had to be everywhere. I had to be involved in everything. I had to be, you know.
I've felt that in the past too, And if you're not, then you're labeled as not caring or not being available. And for me, I'm a woman, so I get labeled as a bitch.
Right.
Yeah, but you kind of have to go back to
well, that's
what matters.
This is what grounded me, you know, and so for me, having that clarity, I know now that no matter where I go, and I knew that's why I had to get out of the operation, because I couldn't live that way.
Right.
And if I want to truly be my authentic self, I need to be in that space.
Right.
So I'm excited about, like, I'm 58 years old. I've had an amazing career. I've been incredibly blessed, both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
But I have not had my best day yet.
Yeah. I love that you say that you haven't had your best day yet, because I think that there's, especially with the younger generation, it's this have it all now and want it all now. And I think, like, life just keeps getting better and better. And
if you don't have personal growth, I don't believe in balance in life. I've got a model.
I agree.
I got a model that is really focused on priorities, and you got to come first.
Yep.
Spiritually, physically, emotionally, your relationships are incredibly important. But if you don't have personal growth in your list of priorities near the top, whether that's reading, going to school, sitting with great smart people like yourself, learning, you are really missing the boat. Because I went to school for the first time post-secondary when I was 49 years old, you know, so for 3 years, and that was a scary thing for me.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have this personal growth part of my priority list. And I think that's where people are fooled. If they think they've got it figured out.
Well, I will say that, you know, I spend a lot of time in front of a lot of different decision makers and CEOs, and I really, when you explain who you are and sort of what drives you, I feel that. Like when I sit with you, you are always present. You know, you're always very authentic. You're just yourself, and it's a very it's a nice way to connect with someone for sure. And obviously, you know, you're doing the right thing by translating that into the customer experience world. So
customer experience world, and I think for me, it's really about people.
Yeah.
And I want, you know, and everybody says it, but I really want to leave this place a better place. And if I can help one individual, just maybe reach that potential, that to me is the biggest success ever.
Well, I think you're well on your way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Closing, what is your personal mantra, if you have one?
Yeah, as I said, live authentically, lead with a caring heart, serving others passionately. That's my mantra.
Love it.
You know, and you know, I fail sometimes, but that's where I try and really spend my time.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'm excited to watch where this journey takes you,
thank
and
you.
excited for the world to watch Brookfield transform, because it will transform under the leadership of this man here. So thank you for your time, my friend.
Well, it's been an absolute honor.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Been fun. Thank
See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Like us or subscribe through iTunes, and follow us on all social channels at AnstisCom.